Hey, I'm Abby and welcome back to the Life Work Balance YouTube channel. Today I want to do a live resume review for you. If you're looking forward to watching this review, please go ahead and give this video a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button as well as the bell so that you can receive life work balance advice delivered directly to you every week. So this resume is from someone on the Reddit thread Resumes. I reached out to them, asked them if they would be okay with me reviewing their resume on a video like this. They gave me the green light. And so what I would like to do is go through my review of the formatting of the resume and then also more of the content of the resume. One thing I would like to preface though is that if you were to ask anyone to review your resume, you will likely come up with many differences of opinions. So this is just my opinion and my take when it comes to resume formatting and also content on a resume. But there may be many other ways that you could format or put content on your resume. So just know that this is just my opinion and that there is no necessarily extreme right way or wrong way to do your resume. These are just merely tips that I've picked up over the years as a career coach, as a recruiter, and as someone who works in human resources. So without further ado, let's jump into this resume review. All right, so here is the resume that I found off of the Reddit thread Resumes. And again, this person did give me their permission to use this resume in a resume review. Now there are just a couple of things that I want to touch on before I dive into this resume specifically. Now the first is just some general resume advice. You've got to think about your resume as valuable real estate. So everything that you include on your resume should be specific to the job that you're applying to and relevant to the job that you're applying to. Do not include anything that is not relevant to the job. You're just going to be wasting the reader's time. The second thing to note is that most resume reviewers, people who are like hiring managers or recruiters, will spend 6 seconds looking at your resume the very first time they see it. And this is only if it makes it through the ATS or applicant tracking system, which is the computer that reviews your resume before humans do. So everything on your resume is valuable real estate. Now, the other thing to note is I do not have a job posting that I can compare this resume to make sure that this person would be using keywords and phrases from that job posting to really stand out. That is also key for your application process. You should be creating a tailored resume for every job that you apply to, regardless of what job it is. Now, you'll likely find that there are jobs that you can reuse resumes for, and you just go in and tweak some words and phrases here and there. But you will want to create a customized, tailored resume for every job you apply to because the applicant tracking system and then the human will likely be looking for the same words and phrases from the job posting in your resume. So just keep that in mind. So let's dive into the review of this resume specifically. So let's just start at the top. We're going to work our way down, and I'm going to touch on formatting comments first. So because your resume is valuable real estate, you do want a header, but you don't necessarily need a huge header. This person's name is taking up a lot of space. They could reduce the font size a little bit and give themselves some additional header space if needed. They've also listed their phone number and their email. That is sufficient. If anything else, when it comes to the header, I might add my additional links to my header, like my LinkedIn profile. As you can see, this person has links over here on their left-hand side column. They have GitHub, LinkedIn, and LeetCode. They might want to add those links to their header to give themselves some additional space. The other thing to note just right off the bat is that this is a 2-column resume format. Now, when you are submitting resumes electronically through online job postings, 2-column formats can be dangerous. It doesn't mean that you absolutely have to convert your resume to a single column format, but I highly recommend that you do so for online applications. This looks great and looks really nice to human eyes, but a computer might get confused. Computers and applicant tracking systems will read this like they would read a book, from left to right, top to bottom. So if a computer was reading this very first line, it would say education experience, some university, Accenture, associate software engineer, BTech in computer science, and October 2021 to present, etc. If you want your resume to have a higher likelihood of making it through the applicant tracking system process, convert your resume to a single column format. Now this would just be for the application that you're submitting. If you have any in-person interviews, you are more than welcome to print off a better looking 2-column format resume to provide the interviewers during the in-person interview. In fact, I recommend bringing copies of your resume to an interview, and that resume can be more visually appealing. But your resume that you're submitting online that a computer will likely review first should be very minimally formatted, very easy to read, and somewhat boring from a visual perspective. So because this is a 2-column format, I'm going to first review the left-hand side column, and then I'll review the right-hand side column. So this person first has their education listed. They've got the date, I'm assuming this is the date of graduation, and the location where they graduated. They also have something that says 72%. This person is from Asia, specifically India, I believe. So 72% might mean something to them, but as someone in the United States, I'm not quite sure what that means. It might be similar to grade point average. I do not recommend including grade point averages or grades or anything like that on your resume. It doesn't really matter. If you have the degree, that's what most people care about. If you got straight A's and you have 4.0, or you got straight C's and you have a 3.0 or a 2.0, that doesn't matter. You got the degree. You did the work to obtain the degree. So there's no need to include grade point average or things like that. Then this person has links. Like I mentioned earlier, including links could be valuable to do up towards the top in your header because it opens up that additional space. Having this section of dedicated links takes up 4 or more lines, because that links header is quite large, that could be used in a more effective way elsewhere. This person then also has coursework listed, and I'm not sure if this coursework is associated with university or college level coursework. If it is, I would include it under the education section. I would consider maybe renaming the education section, I'll scroll back up, as education and certificates, education and training, something like that, so that you could combine the education and the degree received as well as this additional coursework. So this says graduate. I'm not sure what that means, if it's graduate level, if this person graduated with certificates. So you'd want to make sure that that's clear. And then they also have things like data structures, algorithms, and software engineering. If this is graduate level coursework, you would want to include that as a different line item under the education section, because you could be getting a graduate certificate, maybe a graduate degree, something like that. The other thing to consider is that data structures, algorithms, and software engineering might just be general coursework associated with their undergraduate engineering degree. So it might not be necessary to include that additional information in this resume. Then this person also has a skills section. I am lukewarm about including skills sections on resumes. For technical jobs like this, I do think it's helpful to highlight the specific technical skills that you bring to the table. So this set of skills makes sense for this person to include. Now, this is a pretty large list. I would only include the skills or the softwares or the programs that are required for the job that this person is applying to. So let's say that they're applying to a position that specifically calls out the need for experience with JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. I might include just JavaScript, HTML, and CSS, and things that are relevant to those languages that this person might know, but I may not need to include some of these other skills. Then this person also has the achievement section at the very bottom of their resume. Now again, this is more formatting focused, this initial review, so I'm not going to talk about the content yet. But your achievements are something that you likely want to highlight. So I would not have achievements in the bottom corner of your resume. I would instead have those more towards the top of your resume. So that's one of the first things that the person who's reading your resume sees. The other thing to note is it might be a more effective use of space to have your achievements listed at the top of each job that they're related to. So if these points are not related to any of these jobs, then maybe you would have a separate achievement section. But if these achievements are related to other jobs that are listed on this resume, then I might include them within that jobs section. The other thing to note about this achievement section is that the text between these two columns gets pretty close right here, which feels a little bit more difficult to read. It's not impossible to read, but it feels a little bit harder to read. So just keep that in mind, as if you want to make sure that it's not too overwhelming to look at and that it's really easy and appealing for the eye to take in your information quickly and effectively. These bullet points, because they're so squished together, make it feel like large chunks of text. So the chances of someone taking the time to read each of these bullet points is relatively low. Moving up to the right-hand column, we've got our experience section. We've got two jobs listed. That's fine. and then we've got projects listed. Now, when it comes to the experience, and I guess the education as well, one of the things that I recommend doing from a formatting perspective is to say relevant education, relevant professional experience. That word relevant signals to the person who's reading your application that you have additional experience, but you're only including what's relevant to the job on this resume. That's a good way to get around any gaps in employment or even industry shifts. Again, because this person is using a 2-column format, to break up the text a little bit on this, I would recommend maybe splitting the data that's in these first 2 lines about each job experience. So I'd have maybe the organization title, Accenture, and then the job title below that. And then on the other side of this column, I would have then the dates and the location kind of split. That way it makes it a little easier to read and it seems more intentional with the formatting. This person has 4 bullet points. Bullet points are great. You absolutely want to use bullet points when you are creating your resume. Bullet points make it very easy for the person who's reading your resume to actually take in the information more effectively. However, because this is a 2-column format resume, the bullet points are condensed. So it still doesn't look as easy to read because each bullet point is at least 3 lines long. You want to try to keep your bullet points to 1, maybe 2 lines long. So by using this 2-column format, it condenses the space that each of these bullet points can fit in, and it makes a single sentence feel like a larger chunk of text. The chances of someone actually reading the full chunk of text and all 4 bullet points with large chunks of text is relatively low. I have similar thoughts and comments about the second position listed, and then we have projects. Again, I would also recommend using the phrase relevant projects instead of just projects, because that's insinuating that you have additional projects you've worked on. These are just relevant to the job that you're applying to. I would try to incorporate any project that is related to a job that you are in within the actual job listing that you have on your resume. So for example, let's say that handwriter was a part of the Just Dial position. I would include that project in the Just Dial work experience section, not separately as a project. However, I can clearly see that the handwriter project was not when this person was working for this organization. So you may have some additional projects that you want to call out or highlight. Again, if you do that, just only include the projects that are relevant to the job that you're applying to. So that's general comments about the format of this resume. Now let's go into the actual content of the resume. When it comes to the content, I want to focus on the experience section. You want, again, to use words and phrases from the job posting in your resume, and you also want to demonstrate the value that you will be able to bring with you to this new organization by using metrics and quantifiable data in your resume. It also might feel like there are some jobs that are a little bit more well suited to using quantifiable data versus others. You can use quantifiable data and metrics in every single type of resume. If you're wondering how you can do that because you have maybe more of a creative or artistic job that you're applying to or field that you're in, consider setting up a session with me to go over your resume one-on-one and to think and brainstorm of ways that you might be able to quantify what you've done on your resume directly. In this case, the thing that's really standing out to me is this number 50% reduction in loading time. That's something that is quantifiable. You will want to focus on that quantifiable data in your resume. I mentioned this a little bit in the formatting section, but I would recommend putting the skills and the projects into the experience section instead of having these broken out. That way you wouldn't be duplicating information. So for example, this person has JSP and jQuery in this very last bullet point of their Accenture, and they also have JSP and jQuery in the skills section. So that's duplicate information. You do not want to include duplicate information if you don't have to. Now, if you're struggling with how you might be able to format and write each of these bullet points, think about it in the same STAR or CAR method for behavioral-based interview questions. So my preference is CAR over STAR, but they're essentially the same thing. So context, action, result. If you can demonstrate and write down your actions and the results that you achieved in a specific context of the job that you were doing and how it relates to the job that you're applying to, that will be exceptional styled bullet points. Better yet, include numbers if you got them. Now, the other thing that I want to touch on when it comes to this resume and the content within it is I'm not a software engineer, so I don't know necessarily the right keywords and phrases right off the top of my head, but I certainly could plug those in from a job posting. However, we want to make these bullet points more easy to read and interesting to read. So let's just go through a couple of them as examples. Spearheaded the implementation of user-friendly UI designs and accessibility improvements, resulting in a seamless browsing experience for users of all abilities. I don't even know what that means. So this person could probably clarify what they did and maybe even add some additional bullet points. So spearheaded the implementation of user-friendly UI designs. What does that mean? How are these UI designs user-friendly? What accessibility improvements did this person make? And what does a seamless browsing experience for all users of all abilities mean? What does it look like? That person could take this single bullet point and maybe break that down into 3 or 4 additional bullet points, clarifying what they did and the accomplishments they had with this specific project. And that would give the reader more information and see how it's relevant to the job that they're applying to. The second bullet point. Drove continuous improvement of website performance by identifying and implementing scalable solutions. That is very vague. What sorts of scalable solutions? And optimizing resource loading, resulting in more than 50% reduction in loading time. I think that sounds great. Resulting in a more than 50% reduction in loading time. That 50% is a good quantifiable metrics. This person might be able to say something like, achieved a 50% reduction in website loading time by, and then listing out the things that they did. The third bullet point says, collaborated with stakeholders to define project requirements and drive the development roadmap, leveraging my experience to propose approaches and design that resulted in an exceptional user experience. You never want to use first person while you're writing a resume. You always want it to be third person. So take out my expertise. Collaborated with stakeholders to define project requirements. What does that look like? Drive the development roadmap. Maybe you could describe the different phases of that roadmap and which parts you had a direct hand in. Leveraging my expertise to propose approaches and design changes that resulted in an exceptional user experience. What were those approaches and those design changes that resulted in an exceptional user experience? So you want to clarify this information, similar to the CAR and the STAR approach for answering behavior-based interview questions, and focus on your actions and the results they achieved. You don't want to use vague wording. If you use vague wording, anyone could plug that information into a resume, and it doesn't really give the reader any idea of the value that you bring. So you want to focus on rewording your bullet points so that they show the reader what you are going to bring with you to this job that you're applying to. Now, my final point when it comes to content, and again, I'm not going to go too much into detail with these specific bullet points, but I do highly recommend, after reading through some of these projects that this person has listed, that they only include the projects that are relevant to the job they're applying to. Some of these feel all over the place. Now, if this person is specifically working on user interfaces and UI design, then focus on the stuff that's related to UI design. User experience, user interfaces, things like that. Don't want to be bouncing all over the place. You do want to show your depth and breadth of your experience, but as it's related to the job that you're applying to. One thing to note is this person did keep their resume to a single page, which is definitely a hard feat to overcome. So this person did a great job of keeping it to one page, but I do believe this person would gain additional space and have more effective use of their one-page real estate if they converted it to a single column format. So hopefully you found this review helpful. If you did, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And if you have any questions, comments, thoughts, or ideas on things that I may have missed or things that you would have included instead, please put them in the comments box below. I love receiving comments. I will do my best to respond to you individually. And just know that if I'm not able to get back to your comment, that your comments, your experiences, your thoughts that you share will likely help someone who's going through something similar as they watch this video. If you haven't already, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button as well as the bell so that you can receive life-work balance advice delivered directly to you every week. If you found this resume review helpful and you would like more one-on-one customized help with your documents, whether it's your resume, your cover letter, your LinkedIn profile, or any other application materials, please don't hesitate to contact me today. I offer several different services around resume reviews and helping people put together their application packages. So if you think that's something that would be helpful to you, please reach out today. I've linked to my website and my email in the description box below, so you can either pay for a session and schedule with me directly, or you can send me an email and we'll figure out what would be the best services for you. If you're also looking for interview prep help, I do offer interview strategy sessions, so please, again, check out my email or the link in my description box below to my website, and you can see what other options are available for you to get that customized one-on-one career coaching and interview prep help for your next upcoming interview. Thanks, and I'll see you next week.